students who need it. We prefer to see, rather than eliminating categories, requesting expanding and increasing them to include things like low socioeconomic students, refugees, sensory processing disorders, children in care, which you actually identify later in your submission as being worthy of targeting funding to. So we think we could expand that. And I think a big risk of eliminating attaching funding to specific need is that it could be, and very likely will be, replaced by the squeaky wheel model. You trustees already see this in action when you get emails from your parents wanting support for your students. But our most vulnerable children are often the ones without strong parent advocates. So equity for our students is provided when funding is generated by policy. So we'd like to improve policy, not remove it. And interestingly, Carmen and Sarah's earlier presentation can indicate a way forward. Students at South Park with designations are entitled to support, but students who require extra are also receiving support. This is what we consider the base plus model, which you're doing with counseling, and it shows us a way to approach special education that could ensure that students with special needs receive services, but allowing extra support where needed, where the categories don't capture everything. I also want to say time assessing students is really time well spent, gathering a clearer picture of individual strengths and weaknesses, which allows teachers to individualize education plans. So rather than reassigning funding from what you called diagnosis in your report to support, we want to call for additional funding to ensure that we can do that vital work of really understanding our students, but that it doesn't take away from direct service. So we'd like to reframe that idea. And at the ops meeting, there was a little bit of concern I want to address over the language of weaknesses and deficits. And I want to implore you not to let a language problem cloud the issue of the work that's done to support our special needs students in schools. When teachers do the important work of identifying need, which could be called a weakness or a deficit if you use that language, but when we identify the need, we also identify strength. And by addressing both, we look at the whole picture of the child. We send our kids to school because there's stuff they don't know yet. And there's stuff all of us don't know. And identifying our own personal areas of weakness helps us all make our meaningful goals for progress. That's a teacher's job in identifying need. So we hope to see recommendation 5 be substantially amended or deleted. There's a lot there. Rec 6, I'm sorry, my letter to you Saturday night, I left this out accidentally. But we want to say we're not in favor of flexibility in resource allocation as it could be interpreted in your recommendation. Local teachers are in favor of clear, consistent provincial guidelines. Our current contract language is based on provincial funding guidelines, so that's important. And parents should be able to expect support for children and educational programs to be the same around the province. For years, this has been a goal for public education.
Carolyn? Your time is up.
Okay, I'll just say, thanks, I'll wrap it up fast. We just want to say that we recommend substituting the wording of recommendation 6 to read that the Ministry of Education provide needs-based and adequate funding for resource allocation. So that would give flexibility, but also address how we can make sure that all our provincial considerations are taken. So thanks very much. We really appreciate this chance to talk. We'd love to talk more. Thanks for engaging us so far. Have a great meeting, and I'll be sitting over there if you have more questions.
Thank you. Thank you, Sharon. Okay. Let's find out where I am here. Okay, thank you. And so under correspondence, we have the letter from the Minister of Education, read the funding formula, page 14. Any questions, Trustee McNally?
Thanks, Chair. On page 14, the letter is there, and I have raised some questions about one on the chair brought the survey. And in the second paragraph, the minister is saying, in the absence of additional names, the survey was sent to the board chair. Can anyone speak to that? And if
There were never any, just that they never requested additional names.
In the absence
It
of
was-
additional names, because we didn't ask, and then that's really what you should have put there, that's kind of an annoying sentence.
We update the ministry on a regular basis, as well as various organizations that we're associated with. Typically the superintendent, the board chair, sort of like the major positions. Normally I wouldn't expect anyone with BCSTA to have a listing of the actual trustee contact information for all trustees.
Okay, the next one is a letter to Minister of Education, read the payroll tax on page 15. Yes. Burnside Gorge Community Association, the annual report, pages 16 and 20. Ministry of Education, read 2016-17 Service Delivery Initiative report on pages 21. Trustee McNally?
Thank you. I see that the Assistant Deputy Minister and the Secretary Treasurer Siri have reported key opportunities, one being the attendance support and wellness initiative. And I'm not sure how well my memory is capturing everything we're being informed on about that initiative. To me, the last time we talked about it, all the information wasn't in and all the data hadn't been gathered, and it looked to me as though the savings that we were, well, some people didn't like it, were expecting, weren't really there. So I wonder when we'll get a district support, district update on how well that initiative is working. I can support it and
Okay. Deputy Superintendent, you want to answer that question?
We're happy to pull the information together and bring back to the board at a future meeting.
Thank you. Okay, the next one is trustee reports. And so for my report, all I want to do is congratulate Colin Roberts for being the successful candidate for our associate superintendent. So congratulations and welcome to the senior leadership team, Colin. And I didn't tell you this, but you're welcome to say a few words if you want.
Nothing else other than to say thank you very much for the opportunity, and I'm looking forward to working with both you and the rest of the members of the senior team and addressing some of the issues and challenges and exciting things ahead.
Great.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Colin. Okay, so moving on to trustee reports. Trustee McNally.
it's all there in sense. Thank you very much.
Okay. Thank you. And moving over to board committee reports, over to our Education Policy and Directions Committee. Trustee Noor.
Thank you, Chair. As you can see, we have two recommended motions. I'm wondering if there's either of those motions would like to be pulled out, separated.
Okay. Trustee Leonard.
I'll look number 2 because I don't see any document to support it. I wasn't at the meeting, so I can't really read what's up.
Okay, so you want to pull that one out? Okay.
So I was wondering about that as well. We gave some direction to the committee, and can we say then to Trustee Leonard, myself, that was embedded into the priorities that we're
Well, we can discuss that when we bring that motion out. Okay.
All right,
So-
so clarification will come at the time of debate.
Okay, so we should have passed, I guess, that first one, eh? Not, yeah. Okay. So,
Just to ask our stakeholders if they have any comments on the motion before we get into it.
yeah, so with that one being pulled out, we'll just do them individually. And so the first one is that the Board of Education of School District Number 61, Greater Victoria, approve the 3 board Authority authorized courses, Introduction to Electronics, Electrical 10, Introduction to Auto Body 10, and Junior Art Medal. So do our stakeholders have any questions or comments? Okay, trustees? So trustee McNally?
Thank you. To my own surprise, I'm going to support this one. I generally don't support golf courses, but the infrastructure is already there. Students are already taking these courses. It's not like some philanthropist has come along and decided this is a good idea, so I'll support it.
Any other comments or questions? Okay, all those in favor? Okay, so that's unanimous, thank you. And then the next one, that the Board of Education of School District Number 61, Greater Victoria, endorse the priority areas of focus identified by the Advocacy Ad Hoc Committee and task that committee with developing action plans on each item be brought back to a future education policy and directions meeting. So comments, questions, Trustee Leonard, Trustee Whitaker.
So without knowing what the areas, priority areas of focus are, I can't support this motion. So I've looked through the education policy minutes and I can't find any.
Okay, Trustee Whitaker.
So I move this motion to the next board, because that's what needs to be approved, so that we can get all those amendments. There was quite a bit of discussion, there was quite a bit of additions to that, so if you would entertain that, I'd like to move this to the
So move it to, refer it to the next board meeting
next board.
or to the next education?
No, it needs to come back to the board.
Okay.
We've already done the edit policy.
With the amendments,
With
with
what we were made.
So refer it to the main regular board meeting with the amendments. So moved by Trustee Leonard and seconded by,
I move it, and she's going to second
Okay.
it, but
any other comments or questions? Okay, all those in favor? Okay, against? That's unanimous? Okay, thank you. Okay, the Operations Policy and Planning Committee, over to you, Trustee
So
Leonard.
minutes are on page 66 and 73. My recommendation is that we pass motion 2, 5, 7, and 9. And give us the opportunity to discuss Lambert Park Fieldhouse, all of the three bylaw initiatives which we need to do individually, and then our funding formula submission. And if I may, Chair, I have some recommendations around the process for that. But maybe we could look at if there's anybody else who would like to school 2, 5, 7, or 9, or we move ahead with those.
Trustee North?
Number 2.
Oh, right, of course, sorry.
good job.
Sorry.
We're not asleep yet.
Sorry, I have to put my brain going. 5, 7, and 9.
Those are the only three we're moving, right?
Yeah.
So 5, 7, and 9.
No, 6.
We might as well do them individually. 5 is part of 3 and 4.
Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
Well, we'll be
Okay,
fast.
I think I said it backwards. It's 6 and 7 and 9, and I'll go as one, unless somebody wants to pull those out.
6, 7, and 8. I've got some questions.
Okay, we'll do them
Let's
individually.
do
Let's
them
go.
Okay, so number 1, that the Board of Education of School District Number 61, Greater Victoria, direct the superintendent to create a report on the feasibility of the Lambert Park Fieldhouse project and return the findings back to the Operations Policy and Planning Committee upon completion. Any comments or questions? Trustee Leonard and then Trustee Orchard.
I think I need an amendment to this. So the amendment would be that the the Board of Education discuss the feasibility of Lambert Park Fieldhouse project. So I don't think we want staff to go in and do anything until we've had a conversation. I think that would cover what I need to, sound like what I wanted to say? Okay,
Okay, so your amendment is that the board,
that the Board of Education.
Just, discuss the
To
feasibility.
delete, direct the superintendent to create a report on.
That's
and
right.
Replace it with the word discuss.
Yeah.
And then following the word project, put a period and cross the remainder out.
Okay. Basically what I wanted to say.
So,
My rationale is, I don't think we're to the point yet, the whole board has not had a discussion about this at all, so I think we need to have a discussion before we tell our staff to go and do a bunch of work that they may or may not need to.
okay, so the motion that you're amending is that the Board of Education of School District Number 61, Greater Victoria, discuss
The feasibility of the Lambert Park.
discuss the feasibility of the Lambert Park Fieldhouse project, period.
Yeah.
Okay, seconder? So trustee Whitaker. Any further comments or questions? Trustee Waters?
I'm just unclear on when we're gonna discuss that and what, put it bluntly.
And the future operations meeting,
It actually should be a full board because we had it at Ox.
my feeling is the whole board wasn't there, so it was a very limited discussion, and I think it's an item that needs to be a board discussion, so I'm not quite sure how to facilitate that.
And does it need to be in camera or?
Whenever I'm at your mercy. I just want to talk about it. I don't know how we.
To me, if we want to.
Sure.
Well, I wasn't commenting, it was my turn. Not my fault that she's chiming in. Because to me, if we want to talk about something, we can talk about anything and put anything we want on an agenda. We don't need a motion to make that happen. Seems just odd process to me, but whatever.
Okay, trustee Whitaker?
I would amend this motion to add at the next in-camera board meeting Wednesday night. We're meeting Wednesday night.
And we've already got stuff on, to have a discussion, we're doing.
Okay.
The next in-camera board meeting.
Well, that's what I'm saying, that's
When it's-
Okay, so trustee Leonard has got a motion on the floor to amend the motion. Let's deal with that one first. Mhm. Do you want to add it?
I would get a lot of that.
Okay.
Well, my amendment could include at the next in-camera board meeting. No, for the money. There's no urgency. No, I can't.
Okay, so the amendment,
Regular board meeting.
so trustee Whitaker, your amendment then would read that the Board of Education of School District Number 61 discuss the feasibility of the Lambert Park Fieldhouse project at the next in-camera board meeting.
Regular in-camera.
Okay. Okay, so all those in favor of the amendment?
Can we have clarification? Is Wednesday a regular one, or is it
No,
the next board meeting?
Wednesday
is
is
not
special.
Yeah.
So,
So it won't be that.
it'll be regular.
At the next regular in-camera. Okay, all those in favor of the amendment? Okay. So the amendment passes. All those in regards to, yes,
The next.
okay,
Now
so,
your motion.
yes. So, yes, so the amendment has amended. So in regards to discuss the feasibility of Lambert Park Fieldhouse project at the next regular in-camera board meeting. Okay, any comments or questions? All those in favor? Okay, so that's unanimous. And now, back to the motion as amended. Okay, any further questions or discussion about that? No? All those in favor? Okay, unanimous, thank you. Okay, so moving on to the next one, number 2, that the Board of Education of School District number 61, Greater Victoria, approved policy 5132, student dress code, and accept regulation 5132, student dress code. So do our stakeholders have any comments or questions in regards to that motion? Carolyn?
Yeah, we will pass it.
Thank you.
Okay. Trustee North?
Thank you. First of all, I'd like to say again how much I appreciate the work that was done to create this district level policy, 5132, student dress code. It's been a long time coming, and it's come together well. I think it reflects the expectations and the reality that I heard from many different stakeholder groups in terms of the need for a district policy and for enough detail in it to be really reflective of our current thinking and our desire to be as supportive as possible and to be as sensitive and respectful as possible. So I am really keen about all of it as it stands. I have some amendments that I'd like to put forward.
Okay.
So my first amendment is under rationale, 1.0 rationale, and it would be 1.3.
And we are on page, page,
Oh, I don't know it.
page 75?
Okay, I have mine for more ops.
Okay.
And that would be, the amendment would be to include 1.3. The district recognizes that a positive school community is based on respect of self and others. And that's part of our strategic plan and our values. And it creates a landing point for discussions. Yes, yes.
Can you put that on the screen, Vicki? Is that possible?
Okay, I'll just say it again. The district recognizes that a positive school community is based on respect of self and others.
That's 1.3.
Yeah. That would be my first amendment.
Okay. Should we do each one, or let's listen to all of them?
Yeah.
Can we listen to all of them, and then we can go? No? Okay. Okay. So you seconded? So seconded by trustee Leonard. Any comments or questions? Okay, trustee McNally?
Yes, it's an annual sentiment course. It's called dress code. It's based on the Human Code, and this absolutely based on respect for self and others. So I won't be supporting this amendment.
Any other comments or questions? Okay, trustee Leonard, or trustee Orchard, sorry. I do that with my kids all the time, so.
I know, man. I still do. You think by now I knew who they all were, right? That's okay, I'm going to actually, I don't think it's redundant at all, and it does speak, we do speak about it with our strategic plans, so I think it fully aligns all the way along. And I don't think you can say the word respect to
Trustee Waters.
I will be supporting the amendment. Respect for self and others in the context of the dress code is very different than within the context of our strategic plan. The idea of including it within a dress code is that somehow the way that I dress reflects is either disrespectful or reflects my level of self-respect. And so, to me, it's an admirable sentence in one context, but here I think it's asserting morality or values where it doesn't belong, because that's what we're trying to, create a dress code that's really focused on dress and not modesty. To me, respect for self and others really has nothing to do with how I dress, other than like wearing something of hate speech, in which case that's covered here, or wearing something, a naked lady riding a beer bottle is covered here.
Okay, trustee Whitaker?
Yeah, I guess I have a question through the chair to trustee Norm. When would I, as an administrator, pull out that statement that you're saying 1.3 from this policy and use it? Give me an example of how this would be used.
So I'm not sure that it would be an administrator, it might be a counselor, it depends who has the relationship with the student. But it could be used in regard to, it would be a complex conversation. It might have a series of conversations, but it would be around self-awareness and insight into, is this the way you were feeling that day that you dressed this way? Does this empower you? Does this make you feel that you are confident and feeling like this is a choice you would make again in the future, considering that we've had a discussion and considered the impact and considered the context of your life at the time. I can see very much that it could be used to help a conversation and to help learning and education around the choice that is made.
Any other comments or questions? Trustee Leonard? Or sorry, trustee Orchard.
What is it?
Oh, I'm so sorry.
Well, if she's not calling us by the dog, that's really bad when the pet's getting there too. I was just going to say now it threw me off, but it did actually, that did just throw me off my thought.
So if I could,
I'll have to, sorry.
okay, if I could speak, I hear what trustee Nora is saying, but I wonder whether adding that statement puts another value judgment, which is what we're trying to get away from. And, so I worry about whether that is, like, how do you determine whether, you're respecting self and others? And I think that the policy is pretty clear about that, but then we put back in values and allow for the interpretation of what that means. So I think I'm going to speak against the amendment. Any other comments or questions? Trustee Ferris.
Just briefly, it's hard to argue with the statement itself. It's something we all believe in, but on the other hand, I don't know that it really helps us here. And my other feeling is that we've been around the block quite a few times on this issue, and we need to come to a consensus of agreement. And I think that this allows us to do that. And if we start pulling it apart, adding to it and so on, we're going to be right back where we started. And so I urge my comrades to have faith in their administrators to be able to administrate this policy and to move on. Thank you.
Okay, so trustee McNally.
I believe I already spoke to this once.
Oh, did you? I didn't have you down. Okay, sorry. We're not giving everybody two chances, because otherwise we'll be here all night.
I did, so we didn't
Yeah. Okay, anybody else who hasn't spoken?
I remembered what I forgot.
Trustee Orchardson, did you speak already?
No.
You've spoken to us once already.
Yeah, but, okay.
Okay, anybody else who hasn't spoken? Okay, so all those in favor of the motion of the amendment? Okay, all those against? Okay, so the amendment fails. Okay. So the next one, trustee North?
So the next one would be under 3.0 policy, and it's 3.1.1, where it says conform with established health and safety requirements for the intended activity and support learning. So again, I see that in some cases there's dress choices that create a refocus to that rather than to the learning that's happening in the classroom. And so I'd like to offer that up as a point of reference for counselors, teachers, administrators, whomever would have a conversation with a student at some point around choice.
Okay, so 3.1.1 should state intended activity and support learning, and then end on to 3.12. Okay, so do you have a seconder? Okay, so trustee Leonard. Okay, so trustee McNally, you want to speak to that amendment?
Yes, I can't support this amendment. I really fail to see how if I'm learning something, what somebody has on or doesn't have on, it's going to affect my ability to learn that topic at all. So I can't see that dress as a supporter of learning. The teaching is, and the curriculum is, and the student's ability and willingness to learn and improve. So I can't support it.
Okay, trustee Waters.
I can't support it either. I think the idea here is not to distract people with your clothing, and that whole notion of distraction we've been over is really about responsibilizing girls for boys' behavior. So to me, this coded language about distraction is exactly what we're trying to do away from.
Okay. Any other comments or questions? Trustee Nora, do you want to close? Okay.
So one of our schools has just changed the dress policy to allow students to wear baseball caps, and another one has decided to change the policy to remove hats and hoodies. Hoodies is an example. We've got two kids at the back of the room, and they've got their hoodies down, and they're talking up a storm, and the teacher's having a struggle with that pull and distraction. If his hoodies are down, and the teacher can see and have eye contact, then there's a more effective possibility for engagement. So I see it as a reality.